Police in Pakistan charge a 9-month-old baby with attempted murder. Many are calling the case a farce. Critics say Pakistan's criminal justice system is in urgent need of reform. This is Inside Story. Hello, welcome to Inside Story. I'm Hazem Sika. Well, it's been described as an absurd case that's shone an embarrassing light on Pakistan's, what some call broken, criminal justice system, and it's brought national humiliation to the police. A 9-month-old baby, booked, fingerprinted and charged with attempted murder. Musa Khan, along with his father and grandfather, allegedly threw rocks at police. The family was protesting outside their home at a slum in Lahore, trying to prevent their gas from being cut off for unpaid bills. The police then arrested everyone in the house, including 9-month-old Musa. Now, the family says it's been forced into hiding after coming under intense pressure from the police. Now, the case has, not surprisingly, created a media storm in Pakistan, with critics saying it's just another example of a dysfunctional justice system that hands out collective punishment to poor families. And it comes as well at an uncomfortable time for the government after it passed a new anti-terror law this week, which has been widely condemned by human rights groups and opposition parties. The anti-terror law gives Pakistani police the power to detain suspects at secret locations for up to 90 days. As well as the power to shoot terror suspects on sight. The police will also be able to carry out raids without search warrants. And it reverses the burden of proof, forcing the accused to prove they are not guilty. Well, for more on this, I'm joined by our guests from Karachi, Faisal Sabzwari, leader of the Muttahida Quami Movement from London. From Karachi, rather. And from London, we have Senator Tariq Azeem, media advisor to the Pakistan Muslim League, the PMLN. That's the party of Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif. And from Islamabad, we have Ahmad Raza Kasuri, lawyer and former legal advisor to ex-President Musharraf. Mr. Kasuri is also one of the founding fathers of the 1973 Pakistan Constitution. Good to have you all with us, gentlemen. Now, Faisal Sabzwari, if I could start with you. I suppose the little boy's grandfather put it best when he reportedly told people outside the courthouse he does not even know how to pick up his milk bottle properly. How can he stone the police? I mean, where do you even begin with a story like this? And what is it about Pakistan's criminal justice system that it's come to something as absurd as this?
Well, certainly it is absurd, but it is not the first of its kind, and it is not the last case. The criminal justice system, the entire policing system, we call it colonial, but people who have been experiencing it, they call it draconian. The way police has been behaving lately, and I come from a political party which has experienced this state operation, which has experienced the high-handedness from the police and paramilitary forces in the mid-90s and early 2000s. That's why we have very strongly protested against this draconian Pakistan Protection Ordinance. As you very rightly mentioned, that it gives police and paramilitary forces powers which are going to be abused at any cost. That law was passed as an ordinance by the President of Pakistan in mid-October. And we have been experiencing here in Karachi that our workers, in the name of targeted action against the criminals, they have been detained. Their whereabouts are not known to us. Their families have been going to the courts. They have been knocking each and every possible door, but we are finding their dumped bodies after a few weeks, and police has been refusing that. They were not even pegged, they were not even arrested. So if it is the case with the existing laws, what will police do if they are allowed to shoot any person with a suspicion of being a criminal? What would police do that if they are allowed to have someone in custody without telling court about the charges, without telling his families about the charges against that particular gentleman for 90 days? And they can use torture. The existing law of Pakistan used to say that the tortured person's confession cannot be called justified, cannot be called valid before a sessions court or a session judge. Right now, this particular law is demolishing each and every norm of justice in the name of protection of Pakistan. If Pakistanis are not protected, how can Pakistan be protected?
Indeed, you bring up a number of issues there that we hope to get into in more detail, but if I could just turn then to Senator Tariq Azeem in London. I mean, what do you think this particular case says about the state of the criminal justice system in Pakistan?
I think there are two different issues. Let's take the case of the young kid who's been picked up, 9 months old. I think it's obviously absurd. It is against the law. I don't think there's any law which says allows you to go and arrest a 7 or 9 months old kid. So it is so absurd that is almost comical. I think somebody wants to.
So why did they do it then? I mean, how do you even make sense of something like this?
Somebody obviously does not understand the law. Whoever it is, whether there is the police or whether it is somebody else, I do not know who has done it. But whoever it is has to be taken to task. You know, there is no doubt about that. As far as the other case is concerned about the Protection of Pakistan bill that has been introduced in the National Assembly, I think we must understand these are extraordinary circumstances in Pakistan. Nobody, and my friend Faisal will understand that, and I know we have been participating in the same programs before, that not a single terrorist has been convicted thus far. No judge will even hear their case because they're afraid of their own lives. No witness will appear before the court, so there's no chance of anybody being convicted. So these extraordinary circumstances demand extraordinary laws. All over the world, whether it is United Kingdom, whether USA, whether it is when it was Black September, or whether it was Red Brigade in Europe, everywhere they had to bring in laws to curb down terrorism. When it was IRA was operating here, you had martial law in Northern Ireland. Even here in UK, where I'm sitting today, I've been discussing it with some of the members of Parliament here. Theresa May, the Home Secretary, wanted to bring in 60 days detention without trial law. Obviously, they allowed only 42 days. Is there no human rights here? Of course there are human rights here. There is democracy here. There is rule of law. What we are discussing, quite frankly, here is not the use, not the law itself, but the use or the misuse or even abuse of the law. That's what we are talking about. And that abuse of the law has to stop. And we have to make sure that anybody, whether it is police, whether it is paramilitary forces, or whether it's any other law enforcing agency, who misuse their authority have to be punished so severely that they have to strictly adhere to the law. That has to be done. And maybe we might even have a clause here, which will be a time clause, sundown clause, where we can try it out. Because Faisal and my friend Kasuri Saab will also understand that we need to have laws where people can be convicted. People can go to the courts and abuse the judge on his face. Witnesses protection program has to be there, so the witnesses can go and give witness. At the moment, there was a case in Karachi itself where a reporter was killed, and not one single person was prepared to even appear in the court. The court had to be moved to inside Sindh so that people could go there and appear before the court. The judges will not hear the case. So when this is the circumstances, we have to have special laws.
Let's continue to broaden this out then. This anti-terror law that we've just been talking about is just the latest in a long line of controversial legislation in Pakistan. The country's existing blasphemy laws make it illegal and punishable by death to insult or criticize Islam. Last year, 36 people were accused of blasphemy. And in March, a tough national security legislation was passed. Critics argue it reduces the right for defendants, enables longer periods of detention without charge, and unfairly targets poor communities. So, Ahmed Raza Kasuri, I mean, I don't want to spend too much time focusing on the case of this 9-month-old boy because enough ridicule has been heaped on that, and frankly, it's too easy. But I want to ask you, what is your take on all of this more broadly? And I have to ask, does it embarrass you as a Pakistani?
You see, in the criminal justice system, there are 3 age brackets. One age bracket is up to 7 years. In up to 7 years, according to the Section 81 of Pakistan Penal Code, a child is presumed to be innocent. And no court of law can summon him or her for any crime allegedly committed by a child up to 7 years. Then second bracket is from 7 to 12. 7 to 12 is if the child is mature and he knows the he does not know the consequences of his criminal act, even he goes scot-free. And then the third bracket is from 12 to 18. This is a juvenile, criminals cases, and we have got a separate juvenile courts. Even juvenile criminals are kept in a separate Boston jails from different criminals who are by their background hardened criminals. They are kept away from them. So these are three age bracket. I think personally this is a case where either it has been a case of a corruption or lack of understanding of law or total incompetency, because unfortunately in our police service at a lower level, the level of education, particularly the knowledge of law, is very, very poor. And they are given a huge big power of the application of laws, and when they apply at that level and with no background of criminal jurisprudence, unfortunately either they commit a mistake where they make a disastrous mistake and make the whole nation and country a big joke. See, now as far as this other protection of Pakistan bail is concerned, Pakistan certainly does not need protection. In fact, it is the individuals, citizen of Pakistan, who need protection from the draconian laws. And
let's talk more about this anti-terror law then, Faisal Sabzwari. I mean, there is this argument that these are exceptional times in Pakistan right now. Huge security challenges facing the country at the moment. We saw only this Wednesday the market bombing in Islamabad that's killed at least 20 people. People will say stringent laws in Pakistan like this are exactly what's needed if you're going to catch the worst kind of people in the country.
Well, certainly desperate times need desperate measures, but there have to be some kind of, I would say that, room for the improvement and room for the betterment. Like MQM suggested that, okay, fine, if you need to arrest a terrorist or a criminal, hardened criminal, for 90 days and keep him in custody for 90 days, at least have a very neutral kind of medical board who will examine him, that if he's tortured or not, because any confession, Pakistani police is capable of having any confession from anyone. They have been dealing people with atrocities. They have been dealing people with brutalities. There have been examples of police torture, like drilling alive people, and we have seen it. We have been experiencing it, and that's why I'm talking with the passion. We know that these are testing times, these are desperate times, but we cannot rely that Pakistani police, unfortunately, which has been corrupt in practices, unfortunately, which has been biased, unfortunately, which has been politically motivated and politically used. What are the guarantees here that this particular police will become saint with a stroke of one pen? This draconian law will allow them to exercise their abnormal powers very, very brutally, and that's why we are fearing, and that's why we have been demanding that. If you need witness protection program, as a leader of the opposition, I supported it in my provincial assembly. If you need more and more infrastructure and more development funding and development funding for the police and paramilitary forces, we supported that. You have to make institutions, instead of one rotten institution, being given more and more draconian powers.
Well, you say these are desperate times.
While giving Western examples, examples are.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Certainly, they are desperate times. But while quoting Western examples, you see their approach have been proactive, while we have been reactive here. We are talking about Taliban. They are outlaws. They don't agree to Pakistani law. While you are talking about a legislation which is going to be experienced by the Pakistanis sitting in Sindh, sitting in Balochistan, sitting in KPK. These terrorists and Taliban are sitting in Fatah. They are not going to have the brunt of this particular Pakistan Protection Ordinance, but the political workers of Pakistan, the opposition is going to face the brunt.
So would you say law enforcement in Pakistan needs to just do a better job under the current laws rather than trying to make new laws?
Absolutely. And cleansing of law enforcement agencies, the cleansing of Pakistan's police is very much needed. What job have been they doing in the past? It needs to be asked. And certainly the entire policy of the state and government need to be checked if we want to protect Pakistan. While talking Taliban as our brothers, these extremists, while eyeing away and shying away from the very reality of this extremism and the nature of this sectarianism, while passing just one draconian law is not going to make Pakistan safe.
Tariq Azeem, under the provisions of this new anti-terror law, any Pakistani, like yourself perhaps, can be rounded up by the police, locked up without charge for up to 90 days. They don't need to tell your family where they're holding you. The burden of proof will be on you to prove your innocence rather than on the authorities to prove your guilt. Can you explain how all of this is good for Pakistan?
Well, anything that brings terrorists to court, anything that brings them to abide by the law, anything that we can do to get rid of this terrorism, which is a big problem in Pakistan, one of the biggest problems in Pakistan. I think we need to look at these things. We need not be very political. With due respect to Faisal, he's making a political point, and I understand why is he doing that, because lately there has been accusation that police action in Karachi, especially where they are based, has been, they've been not doing their duty properly, and they've been overreacting to various situations. So I can understand Faisal's point, but the point is that even Faisal's own party, MQM, have been in power for something like 9 of the last 14 years. What have they done? What did they do, for example, even in their own area? The problem has existed and something has to be done. We cannot, if the situation was perfect, if the laws were perfect, they were being perfectly applied, of course, there's no need to bring in any new bill, there's no need to bring in any new laws. But the problem is that we have to have a situation which we need to arrest. This situation cannot continue like this. Like you mentioned, there has been just this morning, there has been a big explosion even in the capital Islamabad, 23 people were killed. Not one person has been duly convicted of any of these terrorist activities. Now we need to have some sort of a law in place. Of course, we must condemn any excessive on part of police or any of the law enforcement agencies. But that is not the law itself, it's the abuse of the law. I mean, we have to have a protection of the ordinary citizen, we have the protection of the human rights. Of course, we have to have that. But that doesn't mean that we need not have a decent act on the books, which will help us to convict these terrorists.
Ahmed Raza Kasuri, how do you respond to what you've just been hearing there? These new anti-terror laws, are they something that is good for Pakistan in catching the perpetrators of what happened in this market bombing in Islamabad on Wednesday?
You see, the aims and object of every bill are totally different, particularly a bill like this. And the government benches, try to highlight the aims and object of the bill, that it is to curtail terrorism, to control the terrorism in the nook and corner of the country, to provide protection to the judges, etc., etc. But in reality, on the ground, these laws would be used to settle personal vendetta. Anybody would be picked up by the local police, any political worker, and can be sent behind the bar without any warrant. And no court would be in a position even to peep into the matter. Now, I know when I was Member of Parliament, Mr. Bhutto introduced FSF, Federal Security Force. The object was to control highway robbery, to provide protection, etc., etc. But that force was used for murdering politician. My own father was murdered by the Federal Security Force, FSF. And Bhutto was scarcely responsible for the murder of my own father. I was then member of parliament, and then I prosecuted Mr. Bhutto, and he was hanged in my father's case. The position is that these laws looks to be very honorable, looks to be very full of utility as far as the society is concerned, but when they are used by the politician, they are used with a political angling and to settle personal vendetta.
Yeah, let's get Tariq Azeem's view on this. I mean, he echoes a point that many Pakistanis have concern about, is the whole sweeping nature of this law, that it is open to abuse.
On that point I agree both with Faisal Sabzwari and Muttahida Quami that it is, and once again I repeat, it's not the use of the law, it is abuse of the law they are talking about, and I agree with them. If they're abuse of the law and misuse of the law, that has to be stopped.
Right, but what guarantees or provisions are there that it's not going to be abused? You say it won't be abused, but what if another party comes into power and it's a different story?
There have to be very strict punishment for anybody who abuses the law. That's all. I mean, for example, Muttahida Quami gave an example of his father being killed unlawfully, and of course there was punishment because of that. But the thing is that what is happening in Pakistan, we need to have laws to stop that happening. I mean, this is obvious. If there is existing laws can control terrorism, so be it. But we all agree that present laws are not sufficient, they are not efficient enough, they have not been able to control terrorism. And once again, I repeat, not one single terrorist. Both my friends, if you ask them how many terrorists have been convicted, and thousands of innocent Pakistanis have been killed by terrorists all these years. Well, we need to do something about it.
Let's get Faisal's response to that then.
I'm surprised with Mr. Tariq Azeem's thing, because if you're talking about these terrorists, as far as the political workers are concerned, yes, they have been sentenced, even sentenced to death. But these terrorists, extremists, sectarian fanatics, no, they have not been convicted yet. But, sir, you are talking to them. You have made them stakeholder. The Taliban's prisoners have been released now. So who is talking about charging and indicting a Taliban or extremist or sectarian fanatic? Rather, they have been charged and released. The culprits who have killed 60,000 Pakistanis have been released. So who is going to face the brunt of this particular law? Again, I reiterate that this has been the concern. This is our concern. Pakistani police, who is poorly trained, Pakistani police who has been biased. This particular week, a mainstream news channel has unearthed a story that they are involved in kidnapping for ransom and extortion. That kind of police having this kind of a law, one can imagine that what magic and miracle they are going to do.
Let's put some of that then to Ahmed Raza Kazuri. What about using Pakistan's resources to better invest in the current law enforcement infrastructure and get police to do their jobs better, rather than trying to enact new laws?
You see, we have almost all laws in our body politic which cover all the aspects of the society, but where there's a wrong is in the implementation. You see, the implementation, when it comes, that is an area which is very, very defective and poor. And it is poor because our recruitment level of our establishment is not up to the mark. Once we decide to pick up people on merit and not on political basis, or picked up because somebody is a member of a political party, see, then you are destroying the establishment, which is a permanent bureaucracy which provides the experience to the political government. But unfortunately, their recruitment is very defective.
On that, we're going to have to leave it. I want to thank all three of our guests: Faisal Sabzwari in Karachi, Tariq Azeem in London, and Ahmed Raza Kazuri in Islamabad. Thanks very much for your time. And you can add your voice to the discussion online anytime. Just let us know your thoughts on Facebook and Twitter. That's it for me. I'm Hazem Sika. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.